Hi, I'm going to bring you back again to a town we visited once before. The strangeness of this is that the town has been losing population every year since the 1930s, and in the year 2001, the population was 346 people. Since that year, the town population has decreased by 110 people to 236, and the trend is continuing. But this story isn't about how many people are missing or why the town is losing people. It's about just one person. And his name is Branson Perry. And his story is truly strange, and to date it remains unsolved. Join me for the odd mystery of the 20-year-old young man who vanished without a trace from Skidmore, Missouri. Branson Kane Perry was born on February 24, 1981, and grew up in the small town of Skidmore, Missouri. A 1999 graduate of Nodaway Holt High School, Branson was known for his friendly demeanor and active lifestyle. He dabbled in various jobs after graduation, including roofing and helping out with a traveling petting zoo, reflecting his adaptive nature. Branson was also a skilled martial artist, holding a black belt in Hapkido. This dedication showed his discipline and determination. He lived with his father, Bob Perry, at the time of his disappearance, following his parents' recent divorce. Described as a kind and helpful young man, Branson was well liked within his community. However, he also faced challenges, including a heart condition called tachycardia, which caused his heart to race excessively. Despite this, Branson remained active and engaged in life. He enjoyed spending time with his friends and family and was known to have a playful and adventurous spirit. The picture of this young man, Branson Perry, with dreams and aspirations, makes his sudden disappearance all the more heart-wrenching. The story begins on a seemingly ordinary Wednesday, April 11th, 2001. In the quiet town of Skidmore, Branson Perry and his longtime friend, Jenna Crawford, were at his father's house. Bob Perry, Branson's dad, was in the hospital, and he was expected back home that Friday. Branson and Jenna busied themselves cleaning and preparing for Bob's return. Outside, two men worked on Bob's car, replacing the alternator that had given out the day before. Little did they know, this ordinary day was about to take an extraordinary turn. The events that unfolded remained shrouded in mystery, their details obscured by the passage of time and the reluctance of those involved to speak openly. Most accounts of what happened that day come secondhand, filtered through the recollections of Jenna Crawford. She has consistently declined to speak to reporters, citing concerns about the potential court testimony ahead. Even Branson's mother, Becky Clino, admits the events of that day are a bit sketchy and often make no sense. With the court records sealed and the witnesses hesitant to speak, the truth of what transpired remains elusive. But one thing is certain: April 11th, 2001 was a day that changed everything for Branson Perry. The stage is set, a quiet day disrupted, a mystery unfolding. Exactly what happened at Bob Perry's house, and what role did Branson and Jenna play in the events that followed? Maybe the answers lie ahead, but they're hidden in the shadows of that fateful day. Jenna's account adds another layer to the mystery. She recalls seeing Branson rush into the kitchen, grab something from a cabinet, and then quickly leave through the back door. When he returned, he wouldn't say what he was doing, acting as if nothing had happened. Later that day, Jenna took a shower. When she came out, she found one of the men who had been working on the car going through the kitchen cabinets. He claimed he wasn't looking for anything, and he went back outside. Around 3 p.m., Jenna heard the front door close. She looked out the window and saw Branson leaving. He said he was putting jumper cables in the shed and would be right back, but he never returned. The men working on the car said they never saw him. This version of events seems to match what law enforcement has said publicly. Days turned into a long weekend and still no word from Branson. His father, Bob, wasn't able to come home from the hospital as planned. On Friday, Branson's grandmother, Joanne Stinnett, checked on the house. She found all the doors open and the radio on. It's unclear why the house was left in that state or who might have been responsible. Finally, on Monday morning, 5 days after Branson disappeared, his mother, Becky, along with Bob and Stinnett, went to the Nodaway County Sheriff's Office to file a missing persons report. The investigation into Branson's disappearance began. So what do you think happened to Branson? Did he leave on his own? Or is there something more sinister in play? The mystery deepens, and the search for answers is just beginning. Sheriff Ben Espy wasted no time in organizing a search party. They combed through a 15-mile radius around Skidmore, hoping to find any trace of the missing 20-year-old, but the search turned up nothing. Sergeant Steve Whittington, the lead investigator, began his work with the usual procedures, talking to people, looking around, and issuing missing persons alert, but there was no response. Initially, foul play wasn't the primary focus. Young people sometimes leave without warning. They kept an eye on Branson's bank account, but it remained untouched, suggesting he hadn't simply run away. However, as the days turned into weeks, it became increasingly clear that something else was wrong. The specter of Branson's murder hung heavy in the air, raising concerns that his disappearance might be connected to something even more sinister. Questions lingered. What had become of Branson? Is it possible that he was involved in something that wasn't obvious? Something that his family hadn't considered or even were aware of? When investigators arrived at the Perry residence, they found all of Branson's belongings still there, including his wallet. The only thing missing were the jumper cables he'd mentioned he was taking to the storage shed. 2 weeks later, the cables mysteriously reappeared just inside the door of the shed. It's unclear who found them or how they got there. By this point, the case had hit a wall. Sergeant Whittington was convinced that something wasn't right. Some foul play was definitely involved, he stated, especially when everything just went cold, and nobody was talking. This included the two men who were working on Bob Perry's car that day. One of them was Bill Dragoo, a mechanic who passed away in 2021. Whittington always suspected Dragoo, who knew something, but he never spoke up. The silence surrounding Branson's disappearance was deafening. The jumper cables, once a seemingly insignificant detail, now seemed to hold a key to unlocking the mystery. But who moved them? And what did they know? I'm sure this is all tied to drugs, Sergeant Whittington stated, reflecting on the case over 2 decades later. After this long passage of time, the prevailing theories around Branson's disappearance revolve around his involvement in the local drug scene. Darren White, a former Nodaway County Sheriff's deputy, confirmed the presence of a significant drug community in the area. There were a lot of people involved in selling, he said, and they all knew each other. According to the book Baby Be Mine, Jenna Crawford admitted to the investigators that she and Branson used marijuana and amphetamines. Over the years, rumors and anonymous tips pointed to a specific house on a gravel road east of Quitman. It was known as a popular spot to buy drugs. Witnesses even placed Branson at this house after he left his home in Skidmore. Darren White, though not directly involved in the investigation at the time, was the deputy on duty when the house burned down. The exact sequence of events remains unclear. White is certain the fire occurred sometime during the 5 days Branson was missing, likely on Friday or Saturday night before his family reported him missing. There was a lot of activity that went on out there, White recalled, but by the time of the fire, they had all abandoned the place. When White responded to the fire, the house was completely destroyed. There was nothing left to it. It had burned to the ground. And that, White believes, is the most likely explanation for Branson Perry's disappearance. The burning house, the drug connections, the unanswered questions. Could Branson's fate be tied to the ashes of that mysterious dwelling? The best theory is that house is where he was actually murdered, Darren White stated, referring to the burned down house near Quitman. That's the best theory, that he was murdered in that house, and that ultimately, of course, when the house was destroyed by fire, any possible evidence that might have been there would have been destroyed by the fire. The house has been the focal point of rumors for years. In 2019, Nodaway County Sheriff Randy Strong confirmed that Branson was last seen at the residence that burned down days later. While he didn't explicitly name the house, he acknowledged that it was in Quitman. Based on evidence gathered before his time as sheriff, he refrained from sharing more details, fearing it could jeopardize someone's safety. Even if investigators believe Branson was last seen at that house, it doesn't solve the crime, White cautioned. Over the past 2 decades, law enforcement has followed countless leads, but none have led to finding Branson. Without concrete evidence, there was never enough to make an arrest. There was just a lot of little pieces of information, but not enough to put everything together, White lamented. The mystery of Branson Perry's disappearance remains unsolved. The burning house stands as a chilling reminder of the unanswered questions and the possibility that the truth may forever be lost in its ashes. The first major break in the case came with the arrest of Jack Wayne Rogers in 2002. Rogers, a man from Fulton, Missouri, was caught in a nationwide child pornography sting. During the investigation, authorities discovered disturbing messages he'd sent online, seemingly describing the rape, torture, and the murder of a hitchhiker matching Branson's description. They even found a turtle shell necklace among Rogers' possessions, similar to the one Branson owned. However, Rogers insisted his messages were merely a fantasy. Branson's mother, Becky Clino, came to believe him, and Rogers was never charged in connection with Branson's disappearance. Despite this dead end, the investigation continued. Numerous phone calls and anonymous tips led to countless searches and digs across multiple counties. There are a lot of tips, and how do you determine what's credible and what's not credible, Darren White questioned. But they took everything pretty seriously, and a lot of people spent a lot of time looking in wells, ponds, and all kinds of places. The rumors were relentless. One tip suggested Branson had been put in a barrel and thrown in the river. Another claimed he was buried and then dug up and reburied multiple times. Yet another pointed to a bridge as his final resting place. So, here we are all these years later, White sighed, and it's pretty frustrating. The case remained open, but the trail has gone cold. The rumors and dead ends only added to the anguish of Branson's family and friends, leaving them with more questions than answers. In 2009, a glimmer of hope emerged. A prisoner in Holt County claimed to have witnessed Branson's burial and offered to lead authorities to the location. Sheriff White, then in charge, organized a 2-day dig at a well in Quitman. And we dug. Oh boy did we dig, White recounted. We dug deep and never found anything. Later, the prisoner recanted his story, admitting he'd fabricated the tip just to get out of jail for a while. But there again, White acknowledged, you get these tips and you just can't ignore them. After the 2009 dig, the leads dried up. The case went cold again until 2022, when Sheriff Strong revealed that they had a suspect, but they lacked the evidence to press charges without Branson's body. Hope flickered once more in 2024. A, quote, credible tip led the sheriff's office to stake out another well in Quitman for a week. even bringing in the FBI to assist. Sadly, this lead also proved fruitless. The cycle of hope and disappointment continued. Each new tip brought a surge of anticipation, only to be followed by the crushing reality of another dead end. The search for Branson Perry seemed endless. The mystery of his fate is still unsolved. This is still an open case, Captain Austin Hahn of the Sheriff's Office affirmed. This investigation never really stops for us. We'll continue to take every tip seriously and follow up on any credible leads with all available resources. However, as the years pass, the pool of potential witnesses dwindles. Branson's close family members, his father, mother, and grandmother, have all passed away, taking their questions and longing for answers with them. The sad part is that his mother and his grandmother have both passed, Darren White reflected upon. So I guess in some way they're now with him. And so they do have their final answer for people that are of faith. But while they were both living, they really devoted a lot of time to trying to get some answers and some resolution. But it just never happened. The weight of unanswered questions hangs heavy over the case. While the investigation remains open, the passage of time has made the search for the truth even more challenging. The hope for closure flickers, but the reality of a cold case looms large. Will Branson's disappearance forever remain a mystery, or will a new lead, a fresh perspective, or a long-held secret finally bring the truth to light? Only time will tell. Please allow me to summarize this story before closing out this video. On April 11, 2001, 20-year-old Branson Perry left his father's home in Skidmore, Missouri, and vanished without a trace. His disappearance remains shrouded in a mystery, with many unanswered questions lingering even after over 2 decades. The initial investigation focused on Branson's connections to the local drug scene and a house in Quitman known for drug activity. This house burned down shortly after Branson's disappearance, fueling speculation about its connection to his faith. In 2002, a disturbing lead emerged with the arrest of Jack Wayne Rogers, who had sent online messages describing the torture and murder of a man matching Branson's description. However, Rogers denied any involvement, and no evidence linked him to Branson's case. Over the years, numerous leads and tips were pursued, including a 2009 dig at a well in Quitman based on a prisoner's tip, but each lead turned into a dead end. In 2022, Sheriff Randy Strong announced a suspect in the case, but without Branson's body, there wasn't enough evidence to bring charges. Another extensive search in 2024 also yielded no new clues. Branson's family members, including his father, mother, and grandmother, have since passed away without ever knowing what happened to him. The case remains open, but with the passage of time and the loss of key witnesses, the hope for answers dwindles. I can't help but feel a deep sense of compassion for Branson's surviving family and friends. They've endured over 2 decades of uncertainty, grappling with the agonizing questions surrounding his disappearance. Their loss is immeasurable, and the lack of closure adds yet another layer of pain. I hope that one day the truth will come to light, providing them with the answers they desperately seek and allowing them to find some measure of peace. Thank you once again for watching my video. My name is Vince. Would you please consider supporting my channel by either buying me a cup of coffee at my Patreon account linked below, or even treating yourself to some merchandise at my online shop. I truly appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this story, you might also enjoy the story of how Skidmore silenced its notorious bully. You'll find that story up in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just click on that. Thank you.